Hey, it's Andrew here from Home Theatre Engineering, of course, with Enzo.
Enzo, how are we, guys?
Excellent. So what have we got today, Enzo?
Today we are talking with Mike Bromley from Sony. He's the BDM at Sony, talking about all things Sony.
Let's get him on the line. Michael, welcome.
Thanks, Ryan, for having me. It's great to chat to you.
No worries, mate. Obviously, we've had a little bit of issue with the audio, folks, so Michael's talking to us via cell phone. But look, greetings and thank you for taking time out of your day to chat with us at HTE, mate. We're very, very grateful for that.
No problem. It's a pleasant relief from doing home studies with the kids, so quite happy to speak to other people.
Excellent. So listen, before we kick off, so that people know who you are and why we're talking to you, give us a little bit of your history, mate.
Yeah, sure. So I've been at Sony for over 8 years. In Sony Professional. So we're the solutions arm of Sony. We do some quite random things such as broadcasts. You know, pretty much all of the sports broadcasting you see in Australia is shot with Sony cameras and Sony OB trucks. So, I guess interestingly, the home cinema projectors sit under the professional part of the business because, you know, our heritage is more in making commercial simulation and planetarium style projectors, and the technology from those projectors has flowed down into our residential projectors. So although it seems a bit strange to be in the pro part of the business, it's more about finding solutions for people and less about boxes, I guess. So it's a good place to be.
Awesome. How long have you been with Sony?
Just over 8 years now at Sony. So I look after a range of different products and services at Sony. You know, institutional stuff from education to planetariums to military simulation spaces to high schools and home cinemas, something I like to moonlighting a little bit on the side. But a lot of the technology that we use in all those other spaces flows into other categories. So again, you know, our planetarium projectors use the same technology as our home cinema projectors. Our TVs, Bravia TVs, use the same scaling as our projectors do. So there's a lot of synergy and crossover with a lot of the other categories. So
all right. And
double my toes in the stuff.
Are you a bit of a technical dude as well?
Yes, we'll go with that. Why not?
All right, cool. And all right, so that's you. Do you want to give us a brief rundown on sort of Sony history? I guess relevant for of course, our viewers on home theatre. But yeah, tell us a little bit of history about Sony.
Yeah, sure. Well, I guess you could say we're one of the pioneers in the category. Our first projectors were made in 1973, which is,
wow,
you playing at home, it's about 47 years ago. And we've been kind of at the forefront of innovation in home cinema since then. You know, we had our first, well, anyone who's old enough to remember 3-gun CRTs, Sony's quite famous in making those big guys. They got bigger and bigger as they got older. Some of those are still in houses now, I guess. You know, we started making 3 LCD back in 1993. Our first SXRD projector, which is what the current format we use now for our home cinema projectors, started in 2003. Our first 4K projector was in 2004. And our first residential 4K projector was in 2011, which is when I started, and I launched that back in Melbourne back in 2011 at the end of the year. So Sony's been around for a long time. 4K is certainly not a new technology for us. We were part of that whole cinema, you know, change to digital back in 2004, 2005. You know, we've been making, you know, 4K, native 4K projectors since then. We don't play around with resolution. It's a fixed thing for us. We're a native 17:9 brand. Have been always. I guess as we go through that, but you know, we put out our first laser projection systems in commercial projectors back in 2014. And we've seen a lot of that technology sort of flow now into our residential range. So in our home cinema range at the moment, we have 2 lamp-based native 4K projectors, and all the rest of them are a variant of laser, whether that's just laser phosphor or combinations of lasers to get extended colour. Right. So it's certainly been around for a while, so me and Sony, and certainly, you know, at the forefront of the evolution of the projectors that we see out in the market. And, you know, from a leadership perspective, we've certainly been leading the market. You know, in 2011, when we brought out 4K, it wasn't really about content. It was more about theatre design, although people got sort of stuck up in it. Where's the content? It's really about making a more immersive experience for customers, whether that's in a cinema or a residential house. So, for us, for me, it's always been about theatre design and incorporating, more immersive experiences at home. And with COVID, I guess people will nest longer, and whether theatres are more active or less active over the next, couple of years, we'll wait and see.
Okay, so we might as well dive straight into it. What do you reckon, Enzo? I think, one of the things for us, and you've already mentioned this, is resolution. I'm curious about two things. One is the difference between, and I understand what you've said about, how you are a native resolution sort of product provider. Difference between the sort of the different levels of Sony projectors, what you get for your money, and then I think we'll bump into this whole question of resolution, which will be a really interesting one to talk about. So yeah, what's the difference between if you buy a high-end Sony projector or in an entry level or a mid-range? What do you get? What's the difference? Why is it worth investing in a higher-end projector?
Yeah, sure. So I mean, at the very, I guess the resolution is a fixed thing for us in terms of the aspect ratio and the panel technology we use. So in all of our current range of projectors, we use a 0.74 SXRD liquid crystal and silicon panel that has 8.8 million pixels, and there's 3 of them. That's the commonality across the whole fleet. I guess as we move through the range, we add more technology to create more enriched immersive experience. So our 270 is kind of more tailored at that, multi-room kind of customer looking for, 16:9 aspect ratio, probably plays a bit of gaming, probably watches a bit of sport, probably uses it a bit flexibly, has a bit of control over his lighting. And as we step through the range, the projectors become a bit more versatile around, how they manage high dynamic range. We move away from lamps pretty quickly into lasers. And then, as we step through the range, we again improve our contrast and brightness, but we also improve our lens. So once we get to the 870, we pick up a much bigger lens assembly. That lens comes from our VW5000, which is also moonlights as a couple of models called GTZs, which are planet or flight simulators, and that lens is capable of 120 frames per second flight simulation. So as we move through the range, the optics improve, the ability to handle HDR improves, the ability to customize those, calibrate those projectors improves as well. So I guess as you're moving through the range, you're getting, higher levels of performance from the same kind of engine.
I suppose one of the big advantages too, I mean, not that the cost of globes is ridiculously prohibitive, but what we do have and what a lot of people don't realise is if you've got a lamp-based projector, and I notice a lot as a calibrator and somebody changes out globes, is the lamp power degrades over the life of the globe, and it's not until you change it out, because it's such a slow sort of frog in the water, warming up issue. But when you suddenly go and change the lamp out, it's like, whoa, you don't have that with laser, do you? So you've got this consistent, constant light source, right?
Yeah, lasers. We're into generation 5 lasers now, so again, something we've evolved over a long time. And lasers do degrade, but they're linear. They don't degrade in a bell curve. So if we can, with a projector that's been calibrated, like a 760 or an 870, we can get a much longer HDR performance, much longer. More static performance. And I'll give you an example. In some of our commercial projectors, and I know this doesn't necessarily 100% relate to this conversation, but we can get a 7,000 lumen projector to run for 87,000 hours at 2,000 lumens. So lasers behave in a much more different way, and it's much more gradual, any decline, and it's much more instant. Customers get used to turning their TV on and off, and it's an instant thing. With laser customers, they turn their projectors on and off, and it's an instant thing. So we get a much longer usable time where the projector is at its peak performance, not as a drop-off performance, and we get a projector that behaves much more like a traditional television book.
Okay. So in terms of resolution, do you want to ask this one, Enzo? We've been talking about, what ISF says about resolution, and, I think the thing at HTE is we're always trying to drill down, or we're trying to understand everything so that we can deliver the best advice to our customers, and so we're constantly collecting this information. So you go off and do ISF training, and they go, okay, let's have a look at what makes up image quality, and what's the big deal there, Enzo?
Yeah, so I guess for us, the most common thing we come across. Everyone talks about resolution. And it's kind of led to believe that that's what's important. Whereas on ISF, it's number 5 on the list.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
I guess to get your take on it.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I guess if we go right back to why we have 4K in the first place, the cinema standards that were set back in 2004, 2005 were all about allowing the industry to deliver content in different formats. So, 2K, best viewed from more than 3 picture height. 4K is best viewed from between 1.5 and 3 picture height. So if you have a massive cinema, HD resolution is not so bad if you're at the back. But as you move forward, we'll start to see, there's a bit of maths behind this, visual acuity maths that gives us the best place to sit. I guess as we've evolved a little bit and the message has become more about content, and content's been more relevant in the last few years than it was back in 2011. The resolution is important, but it's one of the factors, like ISF is saying. So for us, it's important because it's what we do. And it's part of our DNA and has been since we started making 4K projectors a long time ago. But really what it is about for us is about making immersive experiences for your theatre, whether that's a domestic home theatre or whether that's a commercial cinema.
All right.
And we see that with TV. People are sitting closer and closer to stuff.
Yeah.
No point sitting closer to something that's got jaggies and softer images.
Yeah, it's interesting. We get people who want to build cinemas with big screens, and they're all for it. And we're on both sides of that equation. They want really big screens, and we're going, well, hang on a sec, because your light output from your projector isn't enough for a screen that size. But then people walk into our demo room, and we've got a big screen, and they're going, oh, you're sitting really close. And it's like, well, yeah, okay. Here's the thing, right? It comes down to pixel resolution. What you can perceive with the human eye. We have a very wide, horizontal field of view and much more limited vertical field of view. And so it kind of baffles people. They go, I want a really big, thing in my room. They walk in and see us and they go, but you've got a big one, so to speak. And it's like, yeah, but hang on, we've got a highlight output projector, we've got a lot of color, we've got high resolution. And so, yes, you can sit very close. But you want a really big screen and you've got a low output light projector and so on and so forth, and perhaps lower resolution or whatever.
That's where all those points.
What was that?
Andrew told a client once who wanted a really big screen, and it wasn't going to fit or work. So Andrew actually told him just sit closer to the screen and use the smaller screen.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing.
Yeah. So yeah, it's that was a funny one. It's just like, just sit closer, dude. Sorry, I think we sort of got a little bit lost in there. This is really important, and I think people misunderstand, what you can do now with projectors and screens and screen sizes.
Yeah, I think the thing about resolution for us, and for me, there's an element of science and maths about it that gives us some, pegs in the sand about what a room should be and how it should be designed. And that helps, I guess, from a standards perspective about setting some standards about how we design a space. And then there's the personal experience that a customer has that says, oh, but I can fit really close to this image and I don't see the jaggies and I don't see the image getting softer. And that's fine because we're all slightly different. But from a technical perspective, really for me, 2K and 4K set standards around how we design a space. So it allows cinema designers to be creative. Bigger screens in smaller spaces is kind of a thing. So, whether resolution speaks to me to that end, and then you're definitely right. Luminance and contrast and all those other elements that are key to making a projector look amazing form part of that whole conversation.
Yeah, and black levels, which is one of the things that, of course, Sony hangs its hat on, of course, with the SXRD displays. The other difference is DLP predominantly is single chip devices. Your display's 3-chip devices. What's the difference there? I mean, DLP, for those who don't know, a bunch of mirrors flashing, which is really quite incredible. SXD, RD, different technology. What is the difference there, and perhaps why did Sony opt to go that way and not that way?
Yeah, okay. So from a history perspective, when we so we were a 3 LCD brand and still are a 3 LCD brand in our commercial data projectors, which are quite popular in the Australian commercial and education market. There was some challenges that 3 LCD throws up, particularly around performance at back in 2004. It threw up some challenges around, I guess, screen door effect was a large issue, particularly for cinema space, where the fill rate on that panel is very low. In an SXRD panel that we make now, 92% of the panel over has crystals on it, and the gaps between those crystals are measured in microns, like 4 microns. With our 3 LCD panels, only 50% of the panel has LCD structure. The rest LCD crystals. The rest of it is structure around the panels. So that means that doesn't matter what you do with an LCD 3 LCD panel, you're always going to have some light leakage issues, and that's going to create a grayscale rather than a black floor. And maybe we have to digitally correct that or put some stuff in our pathway to improve it. So we saw that as a challenge for our space. We needed bare black levels and fluid motion. So Sony developed SXRD off the back of a limitation at the time in 3 LCD for us. And comparing it to DLP is a bit different. DLP makes 3 chip projectors, and they're in simulation and cinemas all over the world and do very well, and they have all the same convergence elements that we do. And obviously there's challenges around making a big panel into a smaller panel and maintaining pixels. And I'd imagine the XPR DLPs and the TR guys have developed a strategy around minimization of some of that challenge. A cinema projector uses 3-phase power. It produces a lot of heat. It has exhaust fans to pull out the heat. We can't put that in a home. We've been really lucky to be able to make our panels much smaller to put in a residential projector. But that's kind of why we've kept doing what we've done. We've had simulation and cinema projectors, and we've been able to micro manufacture the same panel technology and use it in a residential projector. Okay. I don't know whether DLP has a limitation in it being able to do that, but they've gone a different pathway with their XPR tech. And it's smart and clever, but it's inherently different. Where we have an advantage, I think, is that I would consider our projection systems to be analog. At any given time, we have all pixels and all colours present. Because we're converging RGB, we don't have all of those colours are available to us always. We pause the projector, that's what it's doing. Typically with a DLP, it's more of a digital projection system. So it's using, mostly a colour wheel, and at any given time, the projector is doing only one thing. So, we have all colour present, all pixels present, and it gives us a rich colour palette and a nice black floor to work from. So the technologies are inherently different. They're all very clever. But what we believe with our system is that we get more of the colour more often, and that gives you a much richer, more immersive, more natural experience than that digital style projection system.
All right. So one of the differences, of course, when you've got 3 chips, is you touched on is convergence. Every now and then, I've come across a projector where I have 3 panels, and convergence has caused issues, whether it's been caused in transit or whatever. Is that a challenge for Sony, and is that something that's been improved on over time, or you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, firstly, it's a challenge for all projectors that use three RGB sources. So whether they were 3-gun CRTs in the old days, or whether they're 3 LCD projectors, or whether they're 3-chip DLPs or 3 liquid crystal and silicon projectors, we all have a convergence element to what we do. Yes, we have. We've been making 3 LCD projectors now for many years, and yes, at times they can have problems. But I guess we see the upside as being much more positive than the other way of digitalising that workflow. So I guess, yes, it's in our DNA, and yes, we should evolve and look for new and better ways. And sometimes that's the way, I guess, around manufacturing and making them more stable in transit. So that is a big challenge. Our projectors are air freighted from factory and put on trucks, and we've all seen how couriers treat products. So that definitely is a challenge for everyone. But and we have got it better. But that is the upside for us is more important than perhaps the freight considerations when we're doing it. So yes, at times there are some challenges around that. But hopefully we're getting it better with every new series of projector we make.
Yeah, and look, I think that speaks to the fact that, I'm a big fan, obviously, and this is how I think you and I first contacted was through Calibration. I'm a big fan of Calibration, and, one of the things is if you're getting a system calibrated, your calibrators should be looking at convergence and fine-tuning that, because, that has a massive impact on the picture, and even if your picture's really great, one of the things about picture quality, as you well know, guys, is that it's not one big change. It's not either a really bad picture or a great picture. Things like keystone degrade your picture, convergence degrade your picture. It's a slow decline, and unless you actually compare the before and after, it's hard to imagine. But if you turn off things like keystone, and if you get your convergence right, and that's why I think everybody, and obviously I'm biased, but I think everybody should be selling calibration because it extracts the best out of that technology. Is that something is that line you agree with?
Yeah. Well, let me address a couple of things there. We took keystoning out a few years ago out of our home cinema projectors because we don't want you to keystone them.
Yeah, I was being generic there, but yeah.
Yeah, and we want to make sure that the projector's flat and installed properly, and we provide a lot of lens shift to help get around those quirky installations if you need a bit of shift. Absolutely. I think that, one of the challenges as a vendor is that we want to see our products go into every home, every showroom and look amazing. And if that last kind of 5 to 10% of the sale, it is calibration. We calibrate our projectors very highly at factory. That's not your room, it's not your space, it's not to your individual taste or need. And I think calibrations are, something that the industry misses out on doing a lot. I prefer all of them get calibrated. But even things like panel alignment, we have that function in the projector so you can sit down at the end and make it look perfect. So at the very least, you should panel align the projector once you install it. And probably you should get it calibrated because, again, your space, your viewing habits, your content isn't necessarily how we intended it to be built a year ago. So, yeah, absolutely. Calibration is an area that should be done. And as a brand, we've sort of softened our approach on calibration. Because we have this massive amount of equipment that calibrates product at factory, we kind of did make it a little bit tricky for people to calibrate projectors. We've softened that approach a little bit over the years, and the most recent update on the 760 allowed for particularly for HDR a little bit of flexibility in how you calibrated it. And as a brand, and as an industry, we've all struggled a little bit with how HDR should be seen, how we create PQ curves, all those conversations, because TV is driving this conversation, not projection. And it was up until TV got into the game, it's always been about projectors. And, we're different from TV.
Yeah, absolutely.
You think about in nature, not many things illuminate. The sun illuminates, some animals illuminate, they create their own light. In TV, everything has its own light.
Yep.
That's not natural. But a projection system is much more natural because everything has light reflecting off it. It creates a much more subtle, more viewable experience. But TVs have to, deal with brighter spaces, high dynamic range, all these other elements now that we're being kind of forced through the streaming services of the world.
Yep.
And unfortunately, as projector guys have to deal with that. I'm all for solid media.
It's interesting that you should say that you feel that projectors give you a more natural image, because that's something I've always felt. I've always gravitated towards, that on-screen image versus a TV. TV has always been a little bit hard, and because of as you said, things don't normally have their own natural illumination. They're reflective, and that's how we see projectors. So that's cool. Now, you touched on firmware. There's been a recent firmware release, and I've had a few questions, excuse me, from customers saying, should I do the firmware update? And especially, you've already calibrated my projector, Andrew. Now the firmware update's available, and I was keen to talk to you about this because A, will they lose their calibration settings, and B, how will that impact their projector? So what's your take on that?
Yeah. So to address the calibration element, firstly, if you do the firmware update, you won't lose any of the color calibration presets that have been, altered and updated by yourself.
Good to know.
It is good to know. And in the firmware, though, it does unlock a lot more flexibility within HDR calibration. So probably it's something that could be revisited, to be honest, particularly if you've set up a calibration setting that's specifically for HDR content and one for SDR. I'm not sure how you to your calibration. But if you have done that, then it would be good to revisit those HDR settings because there is a lot more flexibility in the setup now.
Yep.
You know, we have steps. It used to be just for contrast. Now it's for pretty much all the steps. So, I think that opens up a little bit more flex in getting the best out of that HDR calibration. And in terms of some of the other options, it's really about, particularly on the 760, it adds a few of the technologies from the 870 that help us manage the image across the whole canvas. So, we use a wide dispersion front lens on all our projectors to give you the biggest possible sweet spot on your lens. And then we have some technology called digital focus optimizer that helps sharpen out those corners, those areas that their lens doesn't necessarily sharpen. And that's an element that's sort of drifted down from our higher models into our 760s and our 570s. And then engage the iris on the 760 to help with, improving that black ball, which is, always a challenge for a projector.
So would you say there's a sweet spot? Like if you're going out to buy a Sony projector and you're serious about home theatre, obviously everyone's counting their dollars too. Is the 570 the starter or up from there? Where would you say, look, if someone came to you and said, Michael, I really want a great home theatre, I'll spend a little bit, I don't have $100,000 to spend on a projector. Where do you think the really great home cinema projectors from Sony actually kick off? I'm not saying any of them are bad. What I'm saying is, where do you think is there a sweet spot there?
Yeah, I think, the 270, I wouldn't call it a tinkerless sort of projector. It's kind of a set and forget projector. It's really designed for that 16:9, more TV kind of viewing experience, bit of gaming. It's not a cheap projector by any stretch, and certainly you can extend it and get more out of it. But the 570 is where we start to be more flexible with, contrast settings and HDR settings, and really the 570 and above are where I guess you have more ability and more flexibility to customize the projector to your own needs. So definitely from a 570 and above is where we get a little bit more flexible in the way the projector will behave for a particular space. And I guess that speaks to that customer who's a discerning customer looking to, create a home theatre space, has a lot more control over ambient light and is really looking to push it as much as they can.
Ambient light's a big deal. We work very hard to get people to, shut their room down and control the ambient light and the reflected light on the screen. And you'd know how important that is. Do you have any advice for people, and I don't know if I'm putting you on the spot here, forgive me if I am, amount of light that you need on the screen for standard dynamic range and high dynamic range? One of the things is, we talked about screen size, is the bigger you get on the screen, the less light you get on the screen, the worse your high dynamic range is going to be, because, that limit between black and white is going to be smaller. Does Sony have any numbers? I mean, I've heard, 14 or 13.7, 14-foot Lambert's commercial cinema on the screen, correct me if I'm wrong, and then HDR, I'm hearing numbers from around 40-foot Lambert's. Does that fit, or where are you at with that?
Well, I think firstly, we don't have there's no commentary from Sony around that technically where we think it should be.
Okay.
A commercial cinema, sits between 50 and 100 nits in terms of brightness. They're not particularly bright. We're going to get much better experiences out of a residential projection system. But I guess, for us, there's a lot of variables: the screen quality, the screen type, all those things that you guys get to, design in your cinema or space. But, definitely
design.
HDR is so design. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it really comes down to that. I mean, we'd hate to think that, we'd love people to buy our projectors irrespective, but we want to see them in the best possible light. And so there are numbers definitely on paper that sound better than others, but I guess the challenge for us is we have to work with a lot of other vendors to get to that point. So yes, 40-foot Lambert's is better. We don't have a lot of super bright projectors, but we also, because we are a 3-chip projector brand, the number that we do report on the box is much truer than a single chip projector. So there's I guess we can talk about other brands and how we all do things, but from a Sony perspective, we try to provide real information. Our 1500 lumen projector, the 270, is as bright as a lot of the 2200 lumen DLP projectors. That's because our white light output and our color light output is the same, not white light output here and color light output down here. So yes, big numbers for HDR are better. I don't know that our projectors are light guns as such.
No, and that's, again, I think it comes back to calibration. Enzo?
Can we address the elephant in the room? And that's not me, by the way.
I'm going to be the white elephant.
On everyone, Endo.
I've got the light coming straight in, and the time of day and everything else. I've got the blinds down, so I'm the white elephant at the moment. It's crazy. Anyway, sorry.
There is a massive influx of projectors being purchased under $5,000. With obviously not native 4K, they're all E-shift majority.
1080 chips and so on.
But yeah. So is it fair to say that without mentioning names, obviously, the fact that these people are buying projectors that are made by companies that are essentially data projectors?
Yep.
Do you know what I mean?
I think
one of those things.
Yeah, we'll call it XPR-DLP. It's very clever technology, absolutely. And we look at the amount of brands using it, and there are some brands that we would consider traditional brands that we've had in our industry for a long time, and there's other brands in there that have just appeared out of nowhere selling projectors. And not calling out brands like Acer and Dell, but all of a sudden they are 4K projector brands, and they haven't been before. So it is a challenge because consumers are buying sometimes technology that they don't really know what it is. We make our 4K projectors with 8.8 million pixel panels. We're competing against a projector brand that has a HD panel calling itself 4K. I can talk through the technology all I like with you guys, but the consumer at the other end who's walked into a store or was reading a review online who reads it as being a 4K projector automatically attaches that to what we do. And they're not the same.
Yeah.
Yes, it's really smart, but it's not exactly the same. So I think, projectors in some perspectives are a little bit the Wild West. You can put on the box whatever you like, and there's no real accountability for it. So we like to think that we are an accountable brand, but in projection. But and we have been around in the 4K space for a very, very long time. So I guess we get to call it what it is. But yeah, I think there's a challenge to consumers, particularly when they have to fossick through what a brand does, how it does it impact on me? If it's cheap, why is it cheap? There's a lot of conversation there at that entry level. I think the other thing for entry level projection that is a big elephant in the room is that TVs got very cheap. So, if you're looking at a 100-inch projection system, an 85-inch Sony Bravia suddenly looks very attractive. So as an industry, we've got to work our way through making sure that customers get the very best result. Thanks for that, potentially, but more about meeting their expectations. As we nest to more and more now, we want our experience at home to be better than the cinema experience. Not the same, not a little bit less. Making an image as big as possible with the lowest possible resolution is the worst outcome for everybody.
Yeah, look.
So there's a very fine balance between getting it right and wrong.
It's very hard to quantify, right? And I feel sorry for customers who come in to see us because, we turn around and say, well, we know what we're doing, but so does every other store they've ever been to. So does every other retailer. They've got to choose between buying online from someone that they'll never hear from again, and then they've got to choose between buying from us, and why do we cost more? And then the problem is the reveal doesn't come until the job's finished. They've got no evidence. It's just completely trust-based until the day we open the cinema door, they walk in and go, oh my God, I've never seen a picture and sound like this. But the problem is transporting that expectation to them when they're standing in front of us going, well, the shop down the road said they can do this, and the guy online said he could do that, and we're just going, what we do is different. And our job is to take products like yours and extract the very best out of it in the very best of circumstances. And, we stand on the fact that the difference between just whacking a projector up, possibly even in the wrong place on an angle in a room with a lot of ambient light and white paint and everything else, it's not that there's anything necessarily wrong with that projector, it's just the whole environment. And I don't know how we get this across to people. They just have to trust us because, or maybe talk to other people we've done jobs for. But this is a challenge because, Sony and other companies make great projectors, but they have to be in the right environment. We use the analogy of buying a Ferrari. You spend all that money on a Ferrari and then try to take it four-wheel driving. Doesn't work so well.
No, you're 100% right, Andrew. we're an experiential brand. You know, you on paper, the projector says it's $2,000 and it's 4K, and I'm $25,000 in 4K. It's a hard conversation to have. But putting them side by side in a room that has all of those elements, because you know, a picture tells only half the story, and you know, it is the challenge and does seal the deal for a lot of people. And you know, the more investment we have in bricks, or a bricks sort of scenario, more people have our projectors, and not more people. The more right people who have our projectors in their showrooms delivering experiences, the better it is for our industry and our brand. Yep. Our brand doesn't survive on having cowboys selling it. It doesn't work that way.
Yep. So
or even cowboys calibrating it.
Yeah, you've got to know what you're doing. Yep. Yeah, it's got to be right. So look, is there anything we can squeeze out of you in terms of exciting news, or are there any secrets? Is there something coming up that's exciting, or is it sort of business as usual at the moment? Yeah, give us some goss.
I think. Well, I wish I could. There isn't a huge amount of gossip. But typically, our launch season comes at the back end of the year around the IFA and CEDIA trade shows. So I guess to look towards the back end of the year for some product announcements, particularly at the very, very high end. Might be some interesting stuff there, but you know, not a lot. It's all kind of systems go, and like a lot of manufacturers who have footprints in Asia, we have a lot of challenges around making sure that we can supply our customers longer term. And right now we're in a very good position to supply the Australian New Zealand market, and there's no speed humps from a projection side at all. But that's the biggest challenge, I guess, in the short term, mate. And as soon as I know something I can tell you, I'll let you know, and you can let your
we want to be first.
Know.
So look,
I
guess the other thing is, and this is maybe too generic. Is there, if you've got a Sony projector at home and you're not in touch with the calibrator, do you have any guidance for people on perhaps which of the presets to use, and you know, what can we give people? That was
absolutely. So I guess if a customer hasn't calibrated their projector, firstly they should, and whether that's engaging you gents to help with that or someone else, it's still a win for us and for the customer. You know, out of the box, Cinema 2 is kind of the go-to for. It's kind of the go-to for HDR, and reference is kind of a go-to for SDR. So if you're just out of the boxing it and you're not playing with settings, well, you should to start and you should get someone who can do that properly for you. And you know, outside of that, Cinema 2 for HDR and reference to SDR would be kind of a go-to color space, just a color setting as such.
There you go, folks. Enzo, is there anything that you know you've got in your mind that you want to talk with Michael about at the moment?
No, I think we hit everything. I think you know, understanding that what Sony do is very important and have done it very well for a very, very long time. But I think there's heaps more space for everyone to grow, especially this whole calibration thing.
Yeah. Look, I think it's so important. As people may or may not know, we also own Douglas Hi-Fi, and we're very keen. We're working hard. You know, we've got a problem with space. You know, we don't have all the space in the world, and we want to make sure we're offering, you know, the best we can to our customers. And we're working very hard to try and get Sony, you know, better represented in that space as well, so that you can come in and have a look at all the great products that Michael's been talking about. But look, come in and talk to us anyway, even if it's not on the floor on the shelf at any particular time. We've got the information, we've got the facts, and we'll get it installed in the best way possible. Michael, thank you so much. Is there anything that you want to know from us at this point in time, or have you got any questions? Put us on the spot.
No, look, no, I didn't come prepared with any questions, so no, I don't. Good. But thanks for having us, guys. Keep your social distancing going and enjoy your warmer weather over there in Perth.
Okay, shall do, mate. Look, thanks again. Really appreciate it. Again, for those watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe. Hit the bell, get the notifications going, and we'll try and keep you updated. And we'll try and touch base with Michael, perhaps on a more regular basis, and get some information.
Yeah, no, anytime, guys. Thank you.
All right, mate. All right, we'll talk to you later. Thanks again, guys.
See you, guys.